Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine Alan and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
Jasmine, I got to say, I think today we have the best guest we've ever had. My favorite, my absolute favorite.
The one and only, the House of AC. I'm most excited. I am most excited to have the opportunity to pick your brain one-on-one and see what kind of amazing nuggets we can pull out and teach all the other agents some of the amazing tools and tips and tricks that you have picked up being a realtor and an investor and all that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I now that I'm on the other side of the microphone here, like I feel like my other guests, like I don't consider myself a genius real estate agent. I have no secret agenda or plan. Like I have no foresight, just things have happened. But when I look in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I can connect the dots and be like, oh, I think this happened because I did that and I did that. So I love to share my story and hopefully it helps other agents as well. And, you know, I do this podcast to share knowledge so we can all be better agents and we all can learn from each other. There's not one way to be successful. So maybe my way works for some people. And I'd love to share that message if so.
I love it. I love it. So let's start things off by tell me what is, if you had to kind of distill all this knowledge into like the one thing that you have done that has made you as successful as you are, what would that one thing be?
It's tough to answer one thing. I've got two things. One would be sort of real estate investing, but I'll touch on that second. But I think one that's really sort of like being a realtor. And what I've found and what I've learned over trial and error is that when someone comes to me for advice, they're looking at me as an expert. And so I like to give them one answer, right? So this could be as little as, hey, Alan, what home inspection company should I use? What mortgage lender should I use? What plumber should I use, right? And I don't know where this started, where a lot of agents are like, you have to refer 3 different people. Like,
I don't know either.
I started that way, and I was referring 3. And what it did is, one, it created confusion because my clients are like, you know, you're the expert. Like, okay, you give me 3, but which one should I call first?
Right.
Right. And then I'll be like, well, call this one first. And they're like, okay, well, that's your expert opinion. That's the best person.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you tell me to go that first? Like when I'm put on the spot.
Yeah.
And then technically everyone does the first one in a list anyway, just works their way down. So you could
rotate.
A lot of agents just sort it. Yeah. Rotate it or just put their favorite at the top. And it's like, you know, because what happened, it did 2 things. By me just giving them one name every time. It opened up my plate, because if I refer 3 roofers, right, then and we're under contract, there's a due diligence item, I want a quote for a roof. Here's 3 roofers. So or maybe it's electrician or plumber. And then they call 3, and then they all call me, and then they want access to the home, and then I'm making 3 different appointments, and then we get 3 different quotes. Are we going to get all these quotes in time? I'm following up on 3 different people. My client's calling 3 different people, and then we review the quotes, and then it comes back to, okay, they're all about the same. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your best?
So you might as well have picked one to begin with and saved yourself all this time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just sort of level sets it, because buying or selling, they're nervous. Like it's a new venture, it's a big transaction, but there's just something that I think gives confidence, where it says, hey, Alan told us to call this guy, and this guy's going to take care of us, or this girl, and this girl's going to take care of us, right? Yeah. And in more ways than one, it is, because again, this comes back to, I don't have any foresight. This wasn't any sort of premonition that I thought would lead to this, but this is what I've learned. So what happens is, you know, here's the contractor you should call, right? And I say, just call this guy. Just call this guy. He's my guy. Just call him. I am now the number 1 referrer to all my vendors. You, my mortgage lender, I'm your number one referrer.
Yes.
My contractor, I'm my number one referrer. My plumber, my electrician, my roofer. I'm their number one referrer.
Yeah.
Because I don't split my referrals; they all go one person. And and I had a lender before you, Jasmine, and they kept dropping the ball. Right. And then the clients would come back to me and say, hey, we're going to miss closing. We're going to do this. And then once I got that feedback, I was like, I'm not using that lender anymore. Let me find another one. Until I found one. And we've been together for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But my country, the same thing goes with the other one. I tell them, hey, this is the one guy I go to or one girl I go to. When I say guy, I mean both genders.
Yes.
But I need one person to go to. And if they drop the ball, let me know, and I'm going to handle it. And so on a few occasions, hey, the plumber was terrible and made a mess. Then I get involved. I call the plumber. I say, hey, plumber, my client so-and-so said you did X, Y, Z. Can you tell me what's going on? Mm-hmm. And the plumber has a different side of the story, always, electrician, whatever. But they always say, hey, that is wrong. That's not what happened, but you're my number one referrer. I'm going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So did that benefit me?
Absolutely.
Some ways, right? Yeah. But it really benefited my clients.
Yeah.
And if my clients benefited, then it's going to come back to me and I look like a good real estate agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've created this network of vendors who I know will, if they make a mistake, they're going to go fix it ASAP because they keep wanting to get in my referral business. And if, they got to work on the weekends, they got to show up, 10 o'clock at night to plug a hole in the roof they just put, they're going to do it because they know we got to keep Alan happy, right? So now I've created all these vendors that are in my orbit that my clients get to leverage, and it's just easy for them. They're going to show up on time. They're going to price it right. If they're going to, even whether there's a warranty or not, they're going to stand by it because if they don't want to get a call from me, and it's not a call that I'm angry about. I'm just like, hey, I've got a situation. I want to know what's going on, and they're always like, don't worry, Alan, we're on it. Let me see what's happening.
Yeah.
And it reflects back on me, but my clients have a much smoother experience.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting is, before we started working together, just like as an example, I used to always think that, for example, with closing attorneys, right? Like I would always go to the bigger closing attorneys in town because I was like, they've got an office here, an office there, like they've got a bigger setup, fancier office on the 12th floor or whatever. And then you came in with your closing attorney and you're like, no, this is my guy. Use him. And in the beginning I was like, why would you do that? Why don't you go work with this fancy closing attorney? And then, of course, once I started working with your closing attorney, I'm a diehard raving fan now. Like, oh my God, yes, I understand. Because again, he is, that they love you. They love working with your clients and they're going to bend over backwards to make sure that your clients always stay happy. And I think that's a huge benefit because I know on my end, like I can pick up the phone. It's all going to happen. So not only is it just you as the agent, but for example, me, I'm associated to you because I'm the mortgage lender. Now I'm benefiting from the instant roof leak repair quote and the closing attorney that'll back over, get the title back in 2 days and all of that. So I think it just goes, it's a really, really important tip and a trick that I learned from you once we started working together. And I think that's invaluable.
And I'm happy to share my closing attorney. If you're in Atlanta, Sebastian Erickson at Erickson Law. I am an imperfect human. So, Jasmine, you've saved so many of my deals. You make me look good so many times. Sebastian's the same way. He saves the deals. He makes me look good. And I'm happy to shout out both of your guys' praises and services. I'm not going to share my contractor because that guy's so busy.
Nobody
I'm not going to share my contractor. But I'm happy to share all my other vendors. But you're not going to get it right the first time. Like I went through 3 or 4 contractors, lenders, closing attorneys, and some appreciate your constant referral. And my closing attorney before, Sebastian Erickson, they would take a day or two to return my calls. I felt like I was meeting the receptionist for the first time every single time, and it was very terrible parking situation. There's all these things, but I was like, yeah, this is a big company. Everyone else in my brokerage uses this guy. Uses them, and I didn't feel like there was any appreciation. But and in some ways, using the smaller guys, they are so appreciative, right? They really want you. And if you're the big fish at any company, then I think you're going to be treated like royalty, which extends to your clients. So if I had that one thing, it's refer one thing, and it makes me look like an expert if I'm like, this is the guy to call. This is the girl to call. Call this person for this service. And if you have a problem with them, or they don't give you a quote in time, or they call me first, and before I give you a second one, I'm going to give them a chance to fix it. If they don't, then I'm going to give you a second, referral kind of thing.
And it also makes, I think that it also really makes your clients feel at ease, because they're like, Alan has a team in place. He's got my back. Right? No matter what comes up, he's got a person for everything. And I know, like, when you refer people to me, they're just automatically at ease. They're not questioning, should we trust this lender or not? They know Alan's got our back, and they sent me to this lender. So they're always going to look out for my best interest. So I love it. And, I think that that's something that I feel a lot of agents struggle with, because they kind of just, sometimes they go with this person, sometimes they go with that person, and then you don't have that clout with anyone.
Right. You're just another name. You're just another vendor. If I call, hey, I'm calling on behalf of my client. Who's your client, and why I can't give you that information because I don't know you, or and then we're out of due diligence days, and it's like, oh man, so it gives me confidence. Like a lot of people want confidence from their agent, and if I'm like, this is the person to call, then they're like, okay, I trust Alan. Alan trusts this person. Then my trust goes with that person. And it just makes for a smoother experience.
Yeah. I've heard people say, like, I guess there is some sort of a requirement, to give out like 3 names. I don't know where that comes from, honestly, but I think it's a thing. I don't know if it's just because the agents don't want to take responsibility for, like,
I think that's what it
maybe
is.
referring the wrong person.
Yeah. Right. But that's my job is, hey, we're going to get to this finish line, and I want to make it as smooth as possible. I want to make sure we show up at the finish line.
Yeah.
Then this is, you do X, Y, Z, and let's get it done. So that's I heard that when I first got started, and I think it's more of a CYA, like cover your ass kind of thing. And I'm like, that's not the type of agent I want to be. I don't want to be constantly covering my ass with all these, disclosures and everything. And it'll just be like, this is my team. This is my extended team. They don't work for me, but we work well together. And I know 100% confidence. Yeah.
I love it. So then we can proceed to, I don't think that everybody here has heard your origin story, and how you got started on investing and how you ended up where you are. So do you want to start at the beginning and kind of give us a little bit of a story of, like, this is how you became who you are?
Sure. Well, I've published 3 books on my origin story up to now.
It's complicated.
It's been documented, and details are out there for anyone's interested. But I started as a real estate investor in New York City, and it led me to a book deal called, the book's titled $1 Million by 30. So I became a millionaire by 30 through real estate investing in New York. I was not a realtor when I was in New York City, but I was a real estate investor. And
I read that book cover to cover on a flight one day. I remember I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I love that book so much. I proceeded to have it in my office, hand it to every client. It's such an awesome read.
Sweet,
so good job.
Sweet. Awesome. And so, I was actually in New York City to be a stand-up comedian, and it doesn't pay the bills. So I was like, real estate is going to be the way where I can focus on comedy. But then I realized I enjoy writing books more than performing, or writing humor instead of performing, and also enjoyed real estate investing more than comedy, besides it being paid better. So I try to put humor in my books and teach about real estate or finances or career advancement or job hunting parenting, which I cover in various stages in my books. It's all personal finance based. But those sort of books I call it like the best business card in the world. It opens up doors, right? People are going to have a meeting with an author more than like some dude who's a real estate investor. And that got me on a bunch of radio shows and interviewed on TV and bigger and bigger, like sort of exposure kind of things. And when I moved back to Atlanta, everyone knew me as this New York City real estate guy. Oh, you're the New York City real estate guy. Hey, I'm thinking about buying this house. I want to get in real estate investing. What do you think about this? Well, I was just meeting with everyone saying, oh, you should ask your realtor this question. I wouldn't invest in this neighborhood because of this, but if that's your budget, go look in this neighborhood. And, just sort of giving real estate advice to friends and friends of friends. And they kept saying, well, will you just be a realtor? Can you just be my realtor? And
they finally studied for the real estate exam then, right?
yes. That was it. And I was like, fine. Because I never liked realtors. In my experience in New York, I didn't like it. I knew more than them in many ways. Mm-hmm. Like, let me rephrase that. They knew everything about a primary residence, but I was a different type of client. I was looking at real estate investing. I want to know what the rental income is. Things. Can I renovate it? Can I expand it? Are this rent regulations? And they weren't. That this wasn't their world. I probably did not give them the respect that they deserved. And I was like, I don't want to be a realtor. They don't know anything. I don't want to be, and this is what you see online and stuff. And now, obviously, now that I'm a realtor, I have way more respect for everything realtors do all the time, to keep deals together, keep them alive. But yes, after like the 100th coffee of talking about real estate, will you be my realtor? Fine. I'll be a realtor. And business just started booming after that. But it was within me, I still continue to be a real estate, and I still invest in real estate. And I still come back to this. I had no foresight that my real estate investing would lead me down these paths. But in hindsight, I can see I can kind of connect the dots, which helped grow my real estate business. And I'm not the top agent in Atlanta, but I do pretty good. I do easily 20, 25 million a year, roughly 50 transactions, which is, when I first started, that was like my goal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm quickly at my goal. I can't believe that. How did this all come together? So what first started happening was, as a real estate investor, I started buying multifamilies. Mm-hmm. With a residential mortgage that sort of Jasmine team at Waterstone can do, you can get same mortgage as you do if buying a primary, same rates, same terms, same down payment, in many cases. If you're buying 4 units or fewer, so that's a quadruplex, a triplex, a duplex, same as primary. So that's the rules. As long as it's 4 units or fewer, you can use these great loans to your advantage. You don't have to get a business loan, because if it's 5 units or more, you have to go get a commercial loan, much different rates, much more expensive, right?
Yes.
So this was sort of my niche, was the small multifamilies. And, I started buying 2 or 3 just for my own personal investment in Atlanta, in Virginia Highlands. And, it just shows up on the MLS. Hey, Alan Corey was the realtor. I don't remember. In some cases, I would waive my commission to save some money or to get the price down. Sometimes I took the commission, but it was less of a commission thing, as I was just representing myself because I didn't have very many clients at the time. And what happened is other people noticed, and I started getting this reputation, not something that I purposely tried to cultivate, but I had this reputation amongst other real estate investors who I was new in Atlanta. I didn't know these people. Oh, Alan Corey has multifamily buyers. Mm-hmm. He just bought 2 multifamilies on the street. 6 months later, he bought this. Alan Corey keeps buying, as these buyers that are buying multifamilies. And at the same time, my friends and my sphere friends are like, you're hanging out with the weekend. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just renovating this multifamily. I'm, trying to find a tenant, whatever. But my life, I wasn't like, broadcasting it. It's just like, I'll be over for drinks once I, do the showing at my apartment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then so I started getting a reputation as a multifamily guy to my friends and family. right? So these two worlds started colliding, and all of a sudden, like, other realtors would start calling me and say, "Hey, Alan, I noticed you sold like 5 small multifamilies in Atlanta over the past 2 years. You must be working with a lot of investor clients. I've got this multifamily that's off market. Do you think you have any buyers? They don't want to disturb the tenants," and things like that. And then on the other side, my network, I'd be like, people calling me, "Hey, Alan, I want to get into multifamily investing. Do you know any sort of stuff I'm looking at? Can you help me? Can you be my real estate agent? Do you know anything off market?" And so I just started sort of being a matchmaker. Oh, I've got this lead over here. I've got this lead over here. One's trying to sell, one's trying to buy. I even had a realtor call me and say, "Alan, I don't even know how to sell multifamily. Will you take over the listing?" And you just gave me a referral.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then that even broadcast that I'm a multifamily guy to other people, right?
Yeah.
And this was not any purposeful, thought out thing. It was just naturally occurred. And then now I'm the multifamily realtor. And I've never put that in any of my marketing or business card, but that's sort of my reputation amongst some realtors and some of my clients and investor clients.
So something that I thought was fascinating, though, like, when we first started working together, most of my investors back then would be like, when somebody would call me for an investor loan, they would be like, "Oh, we found this $125,000 property," right? But when you would go out and buy multifamily, like, you were the first guy I ever did a loan for that would spend like $1 million on a quad. And that kind of blew my mind. I was like, really? Investors can spend like $1 million on a property? Because most investors are wheeling and dealing. "Oh, I want this $75,000 property and another one and another one." Yeah. But I think what you have showed so many people is that when you have one property, right, as opposed to 12 little properties here and there, it's just so much more economical, and it actually makes a whole lot more sense, right?
Well, so I've got two answers to that, and they're two different answers. So it depends what you're buying. But in theory, yes, I could have bought 4 $250,000 single-family houses, or I could have bought one quadruplex that's $1 million. Same price, right? Yeah. But with a quadruplex, I only have one roof that I've got to repair. I've only got one driveway. I got one water sewer cast iron water sewer pipe. You're condensing your expenses, and so it's all sort of a way to scale that way. It's just also easier to manage. I'm not driving to 4 homes. I'm only driving to 1 kind of thing. So yes, as you get started, pretty much everyone's got to start in those $75,000, $85,000, tiny homes. That's where I started. But then you work your way up, and it makes sense to kind of condense them.
But one other thing, though, with that is, like, let's say that you're an investor and you come in and you qualify for a $250,000 home, right? Then your debt to income ratios will only allow you to buy that $250,000 home. But when you buy a quad, you've got 3 more incomes. Then all of a sudden, with that same, let's call it W-2 income or whatever that you're making, you now all of a sudden can qualify for that $1 million quad, right? Without making extra money or anything.
Right. So that's a good point. So I have investor clients. So this is good for agents coming to me. I want to buy a $250,000 investment, and it's like, well, you could buy $1 million investment. They're like, "No, I got a pre-qualification for $250,000. Yeah. And it's like, well, that's because you can only do $2,000 a month in mortgage. But if a rental property is making $10,000 a month in mortgage, you're going to get approved because there's no risk to the bank. The mortgage is going to cover your entire note. And they don't recognize that.
Yeah. It's something that you figured out early on.
Well, kudos to you, because then they don't believe me, and then you're like, "No, this is real. I can give you a loan." Yeah.
It works. So then,
but I want to before, because the other opposite answer to that is a lot of people want to come and say, "I've got $100,000, right? Maybe cash. I want to buy a house in all cash, $100,000, and that's great. I'll go sell them a $100,000 rental, and I make $3,000 as an agent on commission." But if you understand real estate investing, I teach them. I said, why don't you chop up that $100,000 and do the opposite of what I just said and buy 5 homes. Or maybe you buy a 4-plex if the numbers work. But in this example, let's say I'll talk them into buying 5 homes that have $20,000 each as a down payment. You're still spending the same $100,000, but one you acquired 1 house and one you acquired 5. And they're like, no, that's too risky. I don't want a mortgage. I don't want to do that. And I lay out the math for them, and I said, if you do the math on $100,000 property on average, you're going to probably profit about $450 a month. If you rent it out for $1,000, you still have property taxes, you still have insurance, you still have property management, repairs and vacancy and things like that. But if you spread it out across 5 different homes, you'll probably make the exact same amount. You will make either the exact same amount or more. So you'll probably make $500,000 or up to $600 if you spread it out with leveraging your money. And it's actually less risky because now if you have a vacancy in that one single family house, you're losing $500 a month. But if you've got 5 properties and one is vacant, the other 4 are carrying the weight of that vacant one. Which is another reason why I like quads. Like if you have one unit that's vacant, the other 3 are usually covering the whole mortgage. And then that usually gets them sort of on board, these investor clients. And then I say, do you think the real estate market's going to go up? Like you're a real estate investor. I would imagine you're investing because you think the real estate market's going to go up. And they always say, yeah. I was like, okay, so you buy a single family house for $100,000. If the market goes up 10%, you made $10,000. But if you spend $100,000 to buy 5 homes and the real estate market goes up, you made $50,000. So, are you betting on the real estate market or going up or down?
Up or down?
So yeah. So there, I 5x your money, and also you're making the same, if not more, in cash flow each month as you would in the other one. And I, as a realtor, I get 5 commission checks of $3,000 each, so I make $15,000. And I got 5 transactions, right? So, and then when they're ready to sell, then hey, Alan, that worked out great. You made me rich. Let me sell these. I want to buy something bigger. And then now I'm selling 5 properties so they can go buy 10 properties. And it just sort of happened that way. And that's sort of what I get into in my book, House Fire, which actually is it's like a bestseller on Amazon in the real estate sales category for like real estate agents. And it was written for real estate investors, but agents have really grabbed onto that idea. Like I can really upsell these investors and they're repeat clients if they really understand the concept of leveraging money using mortgages to really kind of grow your wealth as an investor, which also grows my wealth as a realtor.
I love it. That is so, I think that just being able to educate our clients. Another thing that I find find myself doing with clients is when a lot of people will come in when they're trying to get an investment property and they're like, oh, I want a 15-year loan. I'm putting 50% down. I want a 15-year loan. I want a really small mortgage payment. And I find myself kind of being like, well, let's talk about that. Do you really want a 15-year loan or not, for the same reason, because they'll tap out much faster on their debt to income ratios if they have these massive 15-year loan mortgage payments. You can afford only half on your debt to income ratios, not really, but kind of half of what you could afford if you had a 30-year loan instead. So that's another one of those little tweaks that.
Yeah, everyone thinks their freedom, House Fire stands for financial independence, retire early. So everyone thinks they're going to be financial independent or retire early once they pay off that mortgage on that rental property. Once I pay off that mortgage on my primary. Yeah. And no, you want the biggest mortgage possible because that gives you more money to go invest more money. And this is where things get really boring. But if you're worried about inflation, my little story, my nugget for inflation and why you want a 30-year fixed mortgage, whether it's your primary or investment property, and I teach this to my clients too because they don't understand. And it's if I find a dollar, I say, if I find a Sacagawea coin on the sidewalk right now, I can walk into the gas station and get a $1 bag of candy, right? Let's say I get a $1 Snickers. Mm-hmm. I can take that Sacagawea coin, mail it in on my mortgage payment, either on my primary or rental property, and I get $1 off my mortgage, right? A lot of people would say, all my extra money, let's throw it at the mortgage. Very few people say, well, all my extra money, let me throw it at buying candy at a gas station. Right. But now let's fast forward in time, maybe 15 years in the future. Exact same gas station, open the car door, and there's a Sacagawea coin in the sidewalk. I pick it up. All right, let's go get a bag of candy. I walk in the gas station. I can't afford a bag of candy. I can't even afford a Snickers, right? Maybe a half a Snickers. Like candy is now $2 everywhere.
One
right?
of those wrapped
That's called
peppermint.
Inflation. Yeah. Starlight peppermint, right? Yeah, that might be $1. So my purchasing power is devalued. It's much lower. But in that future, in that 15 years, I can still send that Sacagawea coin, into my mortgage company and pay off $1 of debt. So it's not, my mortgage actually gets cheaper
yes.
the longer I have it, right? So you want to have that 30 years. If you can get a 40-year mortgage, 50-year mortgage, do that all day because it's going to get cheaper over time because your purchasing power is the most it will ever be right now, and inflation is going to change that. So you want to have as much money in your pocket now, and you want to honestly to get wealthy, as much long-term debt as you possibly can. And that's why we're seeing a lot of frenzy in the real estate market, because real estate investors see this and they just want to buy as many properties on 30-year mortgages because it's just going to get cheaper and cheaper over time. It's the same reason why the national debt never gets paid off. Like we owe trillions and trillions of dollars, but there's no benefit to pay it off today. It'll be so much cheaper to throw extra dollars at it 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Let's just keep kicking the can when $1 is not worth as much, but my debt it pays off the same amount of debt.
Yeah, I still remember my first mortgage payment was $728, and I just about had a heart attack because my rent had been like $650, and I was going up by a whole $73, and oh my God, I thought I was going to keel over with that mortgage payment. Now I'm like, yeah, that's pretty funny. 700.
Yeah, right.
Yes, it does get cheaper as we go into the future. So that's really so locking in a low interest rate now is kind of, I mean, even on some of these bigger loans, like even for our clients that are doing like jumbo mortgages, it's even just a handful of years ago, you couldn't get $1 million plus mortgage for under 4%. Like, I mean, even when the normal rates were low, those bigger mortgages were always so much more expensive, but now they're so cheap. So it does make sense to, if you're buying that $1 million quad, you're going to have a 3-point-something interest rate locked for 30 freaking years, and leave that to your kids or whatever you end up doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I encourage it. But sort of a part B to sort of me being a real estate investor and how it benefited my real estate agent career is it all comes back to like just doing things. And so besides being the multifamily reputation, I cultivated a new construction cultivation on accident. I saw an opportunity. I was taking out clients, multiple clients. Hey, I've got 3 kids, and I'm looking for, house $800,000 to on up, $1 million, right? And coming in from out of town, they would expect there's a bunch of choices, but they all had the same requirement. They all wanted, I had 2 clients I could never satisfy, 2 sets of clients, but it was probably 10 in total. But they either wanted 1 bedroom, the primary bedroom, and the 3 kids' bedrooms all on the same floor. So you have 4 bedrooms all on the same floor. Or there were clients that had intergenerational living where maybe family members would come over, live with them for 2 or 3 months out of the year, sometimes longer, or they've got college kids returning home. And they wanted a sort of a combined but separate living situation. So almost like 2 primaries, 2 master bedrooms, right? One on the ground floor for maybe an aging parents who were visiting, and then maybe another primary master type of situation upstairs that they could live in, kind of thing. And so we couldn't find this product. They were constantly disappointed that I couldn't invent this product. And so I was like, well, I know this demand exists. I have multiple clients asking for this. I'm going to go build it. And so I started, I had no building experience, but I knew I could sell these things once they were built. So I figured out how to get a loan to basically purchase a house, tear it down, and build it up. And I interviewed a bunch of builders, got some quotes, figured out the numbers. And so I started building this product that wasn't out there. And all of them, every time I did this, it sold strictly on the architectural drawings. Like I
hadn't
even picked up a hammer yet. Yeah. And they're like, yes, I want that. It hasn't been built. And it's like, okay, we don't know what it's going to look like, but this is what it's going to be, and this is what's going to be the price point. And so I probably did that 6 or 7 times over a course of 3 years. And the benefit, and I was doing it for my own clients. So I benefited because I was also the seller. I bought the property, renovated it, and sold it to my own clients. So there was no real estate commission there. But what happened was I put a sign in the front yard, Alan Corey, new construction, coming soon. And then it takes a year minimum to build a house. So this sign's outside. And what do you think? Every single new construction buyer called me, hey, I see you got a new construction coming. What's the status? And it was just be like, oh, it's under contract, but I've got 3 more. I don't have the plans yet. Okay, tell me. And then I just created this business where I was the new construction guy. And then that was my reputation. That became my reputation for other agents, because then they all started calling me, what new construction you got, Alan? What new construction, Alan? And I just couldn't keep up. So now I started giving these deals to other builders and saying, I'm not doing it. But I promise you, if you build it, I've already got the client for you. Like, buy this property, you build it. Here's the client. They're this is what they want. And now I'm almost like in this custom home matchmaking business, and just by accident. All right.
I don't really think it's by accident. Yeah. I don't think it's by accident. I think what you have going is that I feel like you see a great idea and you just go for it, right? Like, none of this is rocket science, right? I mean, we have all seen the need, but most people just look at it and like, I don't know, I don't even know where do I get a builder, what do I do? But I feel like you see an idea, you go after it, and then, a couple, 3 years down the road, it's like this amazing thing that's been created. But I think it's just that the knowing, and I feel like people should really, it's like a really, really important thing to latch onto in this interview is the fact that you don't just like sit around and think, wouldn't it be nice if you actually pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to build a house? And it just, you put action behind whatever that great idea is, which is kind of like why you have like the multifamily thing going and the new construction thing and all the real estate investors and the books and everything. People just, gravitate towards just that confidence, maybe. It's like, you know what you're doing, and the more you do it, the more you know. And so you are alleviating like this big fear, because people are scared. They're talking about their money. They're like, oh my God, am I going to lose all my money? But then you come and you say, hey, I've done it 100 times. It works. Yeah, right. Come along. Yeah.
It's funny. I got a call the other day from an agent in my brokerage. He's like, hey, Alan, I'm calling you because I got this deal and I know you're the problem solver. And that really stuck with me. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I hated that I had this problem for my clients. So I got, who's going to do it? Like, they've asked me for help and it doesn't exist. Okay, fine. I got to do it, And so, I'm happy to be the problem solver, right? Whatever weird thing you're trying to sell or unique interest that you need to buy, well, I'll find it. But,
for a small fee, I will help you.
Yeah, a small fee. Yeah. But so this has grown into a one-man shop, and now it's like I'm not building anymore or renovating, but I've got 5 builders, so it's like they're happy because I'm feeding them, right? I'm feeding them leads. I already got the buyer. It's no risk for that builder. All I have to say is, hey, we like this lot. We need you to buy it and build it, and here's the buyer, and then I step out and I get double-ended commissions on that, right?
That's amazing.
And 3 commissions. I get it on the purchase of the teardown, I get 6% on both the buy and the sell side, kind of thing. So, and I'll throw it out there. If the numbers don't work, I'm the first to say, hey, I'll reduce my commission on this because I'm already getting 3 commissions, So if they're like, hey, we're $50,000 apart, or not that high, but $20,000 apart, and I'm getting $80,000 of commission or something, then I'll be like, okay, guys, I'll let me help because we're all in this together. I want this to work for everyone. So I don't make a habit of that, but those are, I'm never going to get away in my own deals because I'm trying to get greedy kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's also another thing is I find that there is a lot of real estate agents that are in the business, but they're not investing in real estate themselves. Yeah. And I think that creates a little bit of a hesitation. Like if you're trying to go out there and get clients to believe in you or believe in this this vision that you're selling them, but yet you haven't invested any of your money in real estate, I think that creates a little bit of a disconnect, right? But when you say, hey, I'll put my commission towards this, like that's how much I believe in this thing. I'll give you my commission, or I'll whatever. I've done it. Look at me. I've done it the same way. I think that sometimes that's a missing link for agents, is that they just don't believe in real estate, even though they do it for a living, but they don't believe it enough with their own with their own money.
Yeah. I'm probably unfair on this, because I do know some great real estate agents who don't real estate invest. But when I was in New York, when I wasn't a realtor and I was working with people who didn't understand real estate investing, I used to call them umbrella salesmen. And what I meant by that is, whenever it rained in New York City and I went to the subway, there was all these guys wearing ponchos selling umbrellas. And then I'd be like, you don't even believe in your own product. Like, you're wearing I want the poncho, but you don't have ponchos for sale. You're only selling these umbrellas. And so I used to think all real estate agents were umbrella salesmen, and unless they were real estate investing. But I'll throw this out there, like, you should at least get to the point where you can at least buy if you're a real estate agent, buy your own house. So you know the process, you know the questions that a mortgage lender is going to ask. And I know this comes from a privileged background where not everyone can afford a house. And obviously it's tough to get started as a real estate agent and have enough money to buy a house. But that's what real estate investing afforded me to be a successful agent, because I wasn't worried about every commission, because I had other money coming in. I had another, adjacent job. And I always recommend other agents to have an adjacent job. I started, I didn't like the way my signs were installed. And so I started my own sign installation company. And now other agents started using my sign installation company. And I've talked about this before. We've had agents on previous, Adam Mincy, who started his own staging company. And these are all adjacent, and they all sort of feed off each other. They all help each other. And also makes you look like a more in-tuned agent on what's going on. But what I was getting at is, if you buy a primary residence, one, you understand what it's all about. But even if you buy investment property, you can accomplish the same thing. And then when you have a leak, this is how you cultivate that number one referral, right? Because I've got my own property, and I know if that plumber showed up on time and if he treated me with respect, right? Yeah. I know, and because I've done it on my own properties, I can now say, hey, Jasmine's the lender I use for my personal loans. That's who I would recommend you use. Carl is who I use as my plumber, and that's who I would recommend you use. I use Carl for my own house, or whatever it is. That carries so much more weight because I've vouched them. It's not just some number I caught out of the book. It's, wow, I use them on my own house. I use them on my own properties. And and I'll tell you, those guys, it's all about scale. It's the same sort of thing. Like I've got, multiple rental properties. If they're going to be my guy, I'm going to call them for all my properties. And I'm not just a one-time client. And then that extends to all my real estate clients, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I'm this, infusion of leads for this guy. How else are they not going to treat you like loyalty or royalty? Yeah.
It's like the, what is it they call it? Like the connection economy, or, it's like you're like sort of like the spider that keeps connecting all these people. And in the process, you are benefiting, right? Not only are you taking care of your clients, but, you're also able to afford to keep investing in your own future as well. I love it. I think it's important that the people just kind of, it's what I love about your story, Alan, is that I feel like you did not come from an extremely wealthy family, right? You didn't have like a silver spoon in your mouth. Like you literally just, picked up your own, you just kind of picked your own path, and you just kept going and thriving. So I love that. I love that the real estate gives us those opportunities, that you don't have to have a certain degree. You don't have to have a certain background or anything. You can
such a low bar.
Show up and say, I want to be good at this. And
that's why I gravitated. Like both my parents were public school teachers, and, we're pitching pennies to get things done growing up. But when I lived in New York, everyone that had nice cars, nice jobs, big wealth. They all went to Ivy League schools. They all had families that were rich. They were all like, how can I bridge this gap by myself if I don't have the network, if I don't have the education? And it was basically invest in stocks or invest in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Because anyone can do that, right? Without a license. And I had no control with stocks. I can read all the reports, but I can't go to the CEO and tell him to fire this employee and, raise the price of this product. I had no control. So I felt like I was just gambling a bit. But real estate, I was like, I'm in control of everything. I trust myself. I'm not going to let myself down. And so I can control what I buy for, how much I spend on the renovations, what I charge for rent, and it just felt so much easier and that I was able to control everything. And then, as you grow, I got to give up that control. Now I got property managers making all decisions for me and things like that. But
that's the next level.
That's the next level. But you got to start somewhere, right?
There are different problems that you have to solve for. But as long as you're problem solving, you're using your skills. I love that. That's great. So what are some of the so now you're talking to like a brand new real estate agent just starting out. They've got a little bit of money saved up. Maybe they don't have great credit, but they want to get into investing. Like, what would you say? Like, okay, here's what you need to do to get started and to kind of start your trajectory.
Yeah, I have this conversation 3 times a day. I say the call starts at jasmineteam.com. Figure out what you can afford, and then try to get a multifamily. That's where we're going to start. Because it's scalable, you get to bigger loan because there's all these benefits if you can get in this small multifamily space, and then you reverse engineer it because you give great information. You're like, hey, I need you to pay off this credit card bill, and I need you to save $5,000, and then we can afford this or whatever. Like you give them an action plan, or you come back and a pre-approval shows up in my email that says, John Smith just got pre-approved for $500,000, and on the phone he told me he could only afford $200,000, and I'm like, great, we just upped the budget. This is awesome. And then we hit the roads. But it's just like any other client that you would advise. It all starts with the pre-approval letter, right? What can you afford? Let's look at your finances, and then we work within that parameter. But the guidance is usually there. Hey, let's do this in your spouse's name. Let's and we can accomplish more, or let's wait till the next tax returns come back and then this is going to be the result. So sometimes it's waiting, but it's you need that action plan. How can I buy my next place? And I know I drove you crazy because I would be like, great, we just closed on 5 of these, and it was completely crazy because I've got all these self-employed businesses and everything, and I'm sure you get a big sigh of relief. And then, of course, my next question every time, okay, Jasmine, what do I got to do to buy another
next? How do we do this again? Yes. But I love it. So every time we would look at your loans, it's like, all right, just go ahead and plan ahead. There's going to be 5 more coming right after this. So let's set it up so that we can just go ahead and make sure that we can do another 5. Yeah, I think I think that's right on target as far as the advice goes for that, because, so many times people will come in and they have never even thought or understood that you could buy a primary residence quad with like 3.5% down. Most people think, oh my God, I'm going to need a $25,000 or 25% down payment on $1 million property. I'm never going to be able to do that, right? But if you buy it as a primary, there is loan products out there where you can put very little money down. So and
I want to jump on that. That excites a real estate agent, or you do this for your clients. But for that first agent, it's called house hacking. You live in one unit and you rent out the other. So like you said, you can get an FHA loan on a quad, where you live in one unit, you rent out the other, but you only put 3.5% down, and those 3 other units cover your mortgage. And so all of a sudden you're a real estate agent who has no living cost because someone's covering your mortgage. You're experienced. You can talk. You've gone through the process of buying a house. you can call yourself a real estate investor, and the cachet that comes with that, you can talk to other real estate. Oh, I buy, quads, and then when now you have 4, units that may need an electrician. Oh, I've got an electrician for you. Like you're instantly plugged in and networked, just because you bought one property that's 1/4 primary living and 3/4 investment, and that will change your life. You'll fall in love with real estate. You're like, I don't have any bills each month because my tenants are covering it, and then you're able to save up a lot of money that next year that you would have paid towards rent or to a mortgage, and then you can go buy another property, and you go buy another property, and then you're on the endless cycle that I'm on. But I love it. Yeah, it spirals out of control, baby.
The fun never ends. That's wonderful. I think another thing before we wrap up, I just wanted to make sure that I kind of pick your brain a little bit on where do you think things are going in the future? Like what is your prediction? What does the real estate market do over the next couple of years? I know things are a little bit crazy right now. So if you had a crystal ball that you could shake up, what are your thoughts on the future?
I guess different thoughts are. I've got real estate investing thoughts as well as real estate agent thoughts. I think we'll focus on real estate agents. Because that's going to be our audience here. But I think there's going to be a big player in these iBuyer programs. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that needs to freak you out. I think there is someone, there are clients out there who will just be the bottom rate. They're going to like the discount brokerages, mm-hmm. No matter what. No matter, you can say all the benefits you bring that a discount broker doesn't. They're just going to be the cheap. They're like, I want this, right? And then there's going to be a section of buyers who are, I just want convenience. I just want to click a button and sell my house. I don't want to talk to an agent. I don't want any strangers coming through my home, and I don't care if I'm paying more than I should. I will pay for that convenience. And that's sort of what I think that iBuyer is going to capture. And then I also think there's going to be a section of people who always want someone to hold their hand. There's always going to be someone who wants to, have a friend or an ally or someone who, because they're scared and they don't trust the button on the computer. They don't want the cheap out. They want to pay for a concierge type service when either buying or selling their home. And that's where we live as real estate agents. Possibly there's some compression on the commission rates because of it, because we have this new sort of competition. But I still think you can have a really successful career as a real estate agent long term. But I do think it'll be more and more difficult. And I think there might be more teams being played just because there'll be fewer deals potentially. And so you kind of economy of scale and expenses, you kind of share some of the costs through a team and all work together. I probably see more team concepts coming in the future on the real estate side as well. So, I've created a team recently. And, if you're listening to this, who knows when this is going to air? I may have opportunities for you on my team or not, but be in touch. But it's really kind of, being flexible, being agile, and and understanding what your reputation is. There's someone that I know who lives in an apartment here in Atlanta, one of the condo buildings that has like 200 units. I don't even know if she rents there, but she gets every single listing in that condo. And everyone knows if you want to get in that condo, I know to call her. I've got a client that wants to get in that building. I'm going to call her. So you can create that reputation for yourself in some capacity without buying a property. But you need to create a reputation. What is your reputation going to be? Whether it falls upon you and you just own it like I've done and you just roll with it, or you cultivate it purposely. I want to, the advice I give is, because a lot of people come in, Alan, your story's great, but you sell $1 million homes. Of course, it's so easy.
It's easy. Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is my advice. If you want to sell $1 million homes, this is how easy it is, and it costs nothing. Whatever part of town that you're in, you just go to every single $1 million listing out there and film yourself doing a walkthrough. It's not even your listing. You just say, hey, I'm in so-and-so neighborhood. I just want to show you this $1 million listing, blah, 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 blah. And you put it on Instagram. What's going to happen in 3 months? You just told your Spirit Network, you know about every single $1 million house in whatever zip code or whatever town or whatever city. And now I know, hey, that person knows what the $1 million homes are, right?
Yeah.
Maybe she or he never sold one.
Yeah.
They never sold one. None of them were listings, but I see every single day a new $1 million listing on this person's Instagram feed. And then my buddy, my boss at work or whatever is like, I'm looking to buy a house. And I'm like, oh, that guy probably wants $1 million. Oh, you should call that agent. I see her all the time on Instagram, whatever. Like, it's that easy and it's free. And then all of a sudden you've cultivated this reputation that you're a $1 million agent. That's, I think, golden advice. I think everything we talk about on this podcast, Jasmine, is golden advice. It's what idea are you going to latch on and do?
Yeah.
And I don't expect you to do every idea, but find one that you're like, oh, I could do that. I could do that on the weekends. I could do that, on my way to work or whatever it is. If you have a full-time job and you're an agent, find some ideas across all of these podcasts and just do one consistently, and that'll be your reputation, and that's going to carry you in this career.
I love it. Well, thank you, Alan. You are amazing. Your story is super inspiring, and you're definitely my favorite co-host ever.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Well, likewise. Yeah.
I love it.
I'm glad we're equal in that. Yeah. But no, it was fun. It was fun talking, and thanks for having me, Jasmine. Thanks for listening, everyone who's listening. I do want to return flip the tables and interview you. Jasmine, you've got a great origin story, immigrant who's grown to the top of the mortgage field. So let's plan to interview you someday soon.
Sounds awesome. I love it. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade Podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.